Welcome back to the channel everyone, and today we're going to be going over the storyline of the Victus crew from the beginning to the end. If you enjoy the storyline videos, make sure to like and subscribe and share this with your families who play Call of Duty. Any family members that play it, make sure to give them the link to my video so they can see it. But for now, let's get straight into the storyline of the Victus crew. Let's go. When the missiles launched by the crew in 2025, it left the Earth as a post-apocalyptic crumbling wasteland littered with undead hordes as civilization collapsed. As survivors began to band together to form small human communities and shelters to protect themselves from the now global undead threat, Maxis realized the failure of his original plans due to hasty calculations and began contacting survivors to help him with his plan B. Activate the polarization devices and open a gateway to Agartha, where he could overpower Richtofen and use its energy to heal the Earth. Unbeknownst to his followers, Maxis secretly planned to commander the Aether's energy for his own use to open the gateway to Agartha and reunite with Samantha, which could ultimately destroy the Earth and its people. Ultimus Richtofen, unsatisfied with his limited power over the undead, planned to activate these polarization devices as well, which would grant him further manipulation of both zombies and humans and mend the rift, a direct gateway to Agartha, which would eternally damn the soul of Samantha Maxis in the process. Limited to communication with only those people of hearing the voices of the Aether, Ultimus Richtofen began his own quest for unlimited power. Over the years, Maxis' followers started constructing the first polarization device near the Hanford site in Green Run, Washington State. However, his followers began to doubt his goals and, believing him to be evil, proceeded to destroy the devices. Meanwhile, the Flesh, a society of survivors who ate the undead, was formed. As its members ate the flesh of the undead, they began to hear Ultimus Richtofen, who tried to persuade them to construct the polarization devices. Eventually, a battle broke out between Maxis' followers and the Flesh, which only left a few to escape as the undead hordes descended upon them. Several years later, in 2035, Marlton Johnson, the sole survivor of the nuclear incident at Camp Edward and the missile strike, met with Abigail Misty Barton in a diner near Greenwood, where they also encounter two more survivors, Russman, a former Broken Arrow operative, and Samuel J. Stullinger, one of the remaining members of the Flesh, who used a stolen bus for transport. The four would become known as Victus. At the Hanford site, Victus was contacted by Maxis, who revealed the town contains a polarization device required for his plans. At the same time, Ultimus Richtofen contacted Samuel, instructing him to foil Maxis' plans by activating a tower in his favour, beginning a race for power between Maxis and Ultimus Richtofen. Victus ultimately activated the tower for Maxis, consuming the essence of the entity called Avogadro. Victus was then teleported by Ultimus Richtofen to a skyscraper in the crumbling city of Shanghai, Province 22, China, in an attempt to gain control of the tower located there. Maxis also contacted Victus, hoping to convince them to give him control of the tower. Richtofen tried to blackmail Samuel into cooperating by threatening to reveal to his allies that he had consumed undead flesh. Every time the group failed to carry out the objective and was killed by the zombie horde, Richtofen would use his power to bring them back with no memories of their previous failures or deaths. Victus ultimately activated the second polarization device in Maxis' favour. Victus managed to escape the building they were trapped in and started to wander the world to reach the rift, hoping to find answers about the unseen forces commanding them. They travelled through the remains of Europe, crossed the Sahara Desert, and by December 31st, 2035, found a western town buried underground near the rift in southern Angola. The town was transported from the 1800s to underneath the mining facility by a temporal rift triggered by the fracturing of the Earth 10 years earlier. In one of the cells, Victus found Arthur, who had been transported to the town from 1318 by a previous temporal rift. Maxis once again contacted survivors, imploring them to activate the last spy in his favour. Meanwhile, Samuel was tasked with the same objective by Ultimus Richthofen, as it was also the last tower he needed to mend the rift and gain unlimited power. If the player decides to follow Maxis' Easter eggs in all 3 maps and polarize the towers in his favour, Maxis will gain control of the Aether and open a gateway to Agartha. He removes Samantha's soul from Richthofen's body back in 2025, and as at last revenge against his former assistant, Maxis traps Ultimus Richtofen's soul inside a zombie whose eyes become blue, becoming an undead Richthofen. He then travels to the house and reunites with his daughter Samantha. However, opening the portal to Agartha results in the destruction of the Earth and its inhabitants. Samantha, after witnessing her father's corruption by the Dark Aether, reached out through a temporal rift to the Maxis of Dimension 63 for help. Following Maxis' victory, the Victus crew was contacted by Primus Richthofen and offered an escape portal from the soon-to-be destroyed Earth. Primus Richthofen had discovered his connection with Samuel Stullinger shortly after the events of Origins in Dimension 63, and had decided to use Victus to acquire the Chronorium, a book needed for his plan to find the summoning key. Primus Richthofen also instructed undead Richthofen, Ultimus, to pursue Victus and recover their blood vials. The escape portal led Victus to an abandoned Broken Arrow facility which Russman had previously worked at. There, they discovered a fragment of the elemental shard before providing blood samples, which transported them to empty Earth, still being chased by undead Richthofen. Escaping the zombie horde led by undead Richthofen, they arrived at Zero Base, a facility created by some version of Maxis in the empty Earth. While some of Victus felt that they were finally safe in Zero Base, Primus Richthofen informed Stullinger that the empty Earth was a tangential world that would soon collapse due to their intrusion. Their only way out would be to recover the Chronorium stored within the base. After taking possession of the Chronorium, they departed through another rift, while undead Richthofen collected the blood samples they had left behind. Victus arrived inside Richthofen's lab beneath Alcatraz in Dimension 63, where they met with Primus Richthofen. Upon reading the Chronorium, Primus Richthofen discovered numerous timelines documenting their fates and learned about the blood vials. He would later write on the page, "I know now what I must do." He then left his lab and collected Victus's blood samples from undead Richthofen in the empty Earth, retrieved the blood samples of Salvatore Sal De Luca and Michael Finn O'Leary in 1934, then gave the prisoner's blood samples to his younger self in 1914. Primus Richthofen then returned to the lab. He then offered to put Victus on ice inside suspension devices where they could be kept safe until the final world arrives, which Victus accepted. Shortly after being placed in status, the Primus crew from the future teleported to the lab, and Primus Richthofen gave their latest versions of himself the Victus blood samples. And there you have it. That was the storyline of the Victus crew from the beginning to the end. I will be doing a series where I'm doing the characters' backstories one by one, but that will be for a later. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all on the next one. Goodbye.